Are you ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully? Then let go of whatever no longer serves you to take action now on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. With Erica's E3 approach, equipping, empowering, and enlightening yourself so you can be yourself for yourself. Get ready and get rooted to live a life without regrets, without what ifs, without should haves, and especially without empty feelings from a life unexplored. This hit show helps you build powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Get fearlessly ready and powerfully rooted in your yes with your host, Erica Gifford Mills, and be fearless about your more and stand in your yes. Now on Get Rooted Radio.
Welcome, everyone. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. A big shout out, as always, to my producer today, Emily. Emily, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
So back here in February, the month of love. But really, we should love ourselves each and every day, not just once a month, not just on Valentine's Day, but every single day. And during today's discussion, my guest, Dr. Donna Lindsay, and I will lead listeners to reflect on the thought processes we've been entertaining and the heart issues and attitudes we have been avoiding that have hindered our self-love journey. And I will be honest, this topic of self-love has been really hard for me lately with everything I've been going through with cancer treatment and body changes, hair changes, skin changes. It has really been a tough time to not have that be a hindrance. So this time of reflection will be instrumental in improving my self-esteem and self-confidence, but also allowing all of us to gain a greater understanding of ourselves. This greater understanding will lead to an overall improvement in our relationship with self and others as we learn how to love unconditionally and unapologetically. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my guest. Dr. Donna Lindsay is a founder and CEO of Donna Lindsay Coaching and Consulting. She's an international motivational speaker, author, and certified professional coach. She is nationally and internationally known as the self-love strategist. For the last 15 years, she has facilitated individual and group empowerment sessions using principles of love to enhance performance in all areas of her participants' lives. Dr. Donna is a leader in self-love activation and believes self-love is an ongoing process of growth and development. She has authored 4 books, including Self-Love, A Journey, Not a Destination, and a recent release, Leading in Love. She holds multiple degrees, including a doctorate in pastoral psychology. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Erica, for having me. I'm so excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Me too. So as I mentioned in your intro, you're known as the self-love strategist. Mm-hmm. What is a self-love strategist?
So ultimately, a self-love strategist is one who provides strategies to individuals that they're working with. But these strategies ultimately started with me. And so what I did was I took a look at my life's journey. And a lot of times when people think love, they think all of the mushy gushy stuff that goes with love, right? They think of the hugs and the kisses and the flowers and, you know, the manicures and the pedicures and all of that. But what this journey of self-love charged me to do was to really begin to look introspectively. And so as a self-love strategist, that's ultimately what I do. I help individuals to look introspectively. So if you are experiencing insecurities, if you're experiencing fear, if you're experiencing inadequacy, what is at the root cause of that? You know, what experience, what traumatic experience, what voice are you continually hearing in your head? You know, maybe it was a parent who was using that reverse psychology, you know, that's ultimately triggering this type of response. And so we walk through, you know, all of those patterns of behavior. We walk through those thought processes, as you mentioned earlier. And ultimately, the goal is to come to some type of resolve and to learn how to love ourselves unconditionally.
And I think that's really hard for folks, right? Because sometimes we tie, let me use the I statement. I know I tie myself to not only accomplishments, because I can usually get over those pretty easy, but how I identify myself, right? How my I am statements, you know, I am an author or I am a speaker. And when you can't do those things for one reason or another, or things set you back, you start questioning your abilities. I mean, just even I am a hiker and not being able to hike like I have. And so sometimes we get that and then we think, I'm not good enough. What is it? My body's not doing this. And how do I love myself if I can't tie myself to something?
Right.
And I mean, you say that self-love is a journey, not a destination.
Yes.
So how important it is to take that journey of self-love.
It is absolutely essential. And you know, when working with women, you know, I express to them, I am still on this journey. Although I'm the author of this book, I am still on this journey. And you brought up a great example, you know, when you said I'm a hiker. And sometimes we can identify to things or to actions, and it almost essentially boxes us in because it
Mhm.
doesn't give us the freedom and the flexibility to explore some of the other things that we could very well be good at. And so when we're not able to operate in a certain capacity any longer, whether it's due to whatever, because we're maturing, life happens. I used to be a dancer. I'm not dancing anymore. But what is it that I can do to essentially, you know, allow for my existence per se to still have meaning and purpose? And so I think that, you know, this journey of self-love, it is explorative. You know, it takes us, you know, to leaps and bounds, mountain high and valley low moments where we're unveiling and we're uncovering and we're really checking out what's going on within, and how sometimes what's going on within could very well be hindering that journey, right? We're looking at the roadblocks. If you think about the journey, if you're on a road trip, you know, we're looking at the construction that's happening on the road. Then there are other times that we're driving by and the mountains are glorious and the plateaus are amazing. And then we run into a traffic jam, you know, because there's deer on the road, or, you know, a car may have turned over, whatever the case may be. Those are the situations that happen in our lives, you know, the turn of events that occur in our lives that sometimes we see it, and rather than looking for a way to overcome it, we allow it to be that roadblock. We allow it to be that hindrance that keeps us from advancing, which is all a part of the self-love process.
Yes. And I think sticking on that road, right, that journey, simile here is, you know, we do have detours and constructions, and those cause the bumps and sometimes the harsh realities that one has to experience at times before getting on the right road, or if you have to take a detour. And, you know, sometimes those lead us to bigger and better things, and then maybe even more smoother paths. But
Mhm.
what is the intense part of the journey from your experience through the self-love journey?
I think the most intense part, and that is such an amazing question, the most intense part for any individual is dealing with their truth. It's dealing with their reality. A lot of people do not want to deal with the reality that is connected to this thing that they're experiencing, this emotion that they're experiencing, right? Where is this insecurity coming from? Where is this fear coming from? Where is this low self-esteem coming from? I don't want to go back there, Donna. This is often what people say to me when I'm coaching one-on-one or when we're in group coaching sessions. I don't want to revisit that. I've disconnected. I've forgotten about that. I don't want to talk about that. But it's important for us to talk about it. It's important for you to, you know, really access it and face it and overcome it. And I think that is the hardest part. It's just like if you were on a journey, and it's amazing that we're connecting it here. But if you're on the road, you can't say, okay, that's not construction. I'm going to pretend like it's not construction and we're probably not going to be here for 2 hours. No, it is construction. They are doing some rerouting. And as a result of that, as I take on a different mindset, as I take on a different behavior pattern, as I take on a new conversation, this ultimately is what is going to lead me to overcoming. The other blocker that I'm noticing as I'm working with women over the, you know, the last 15 years is that thing of unforgiveness, right? Not only do we have to release those individuals that have, you know, spoken over our lives or have, you know, offended us in some way, this is really not for them. It's really for us. It's releasing us. And once, that forgiveness transpires, then it's like the storm is over. The skies part and the sun comes out, and we're able to continue along this journey. So it is not an easy journey. And I want people to really grasp that today, that self-love is not just about, all of the good things, not just about all of the, the hugs and kisses, as I said earlier, and, the bubble baths and all of that. Sometimes it will take us on a journey to really do a deeper dive into our souls and to really connect with what is going on in our mind, and how have those things that are going on in our mind dictated how we navigate our current existence.
And I think that is hard for folks sometimes, right? It's being honest with yourselves, that when you have to sit, it's just like sitting with your feelings, right? Why? And it's you said you can't ignore that. Or, if somebody says, oh, I'm over that, I've dealt with that. But sometimes we might dealt with it at the surface.
Right.
And it's still affecting other parts of us.
Correct.
So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk self-love versus self-care. Those bubble baths versus, the real deep down love in ourselves. But
Right.
before we go, Dr. Donna, tell folks how they can reach you.
Oh, awesome. You can find me on my website. That's primarily my mode of, communication. So that's DonnaLindsay.com. Very easy. If you desire to email me because you have a burning question, feel free to do that. It's Donna@DonnaLindsay.com.
You also have an event coming up here in March.
I do, the Love Me First Masterclass. It is my number one class, number one attended class, and that is March 2nd, March 9th, and March 16th from 9 to 10:30. It is a 3-week virtual class, and it's in this class that we do a lot of that uncovering and unveiling, and we dig deep, and we really get to the root, and we learn how to love ourselves unconditionally.
That's March 2nd, 9th, and 16th, 9 to 10:30 a.m. Eastern time?
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
perfect. So figure out how you can make that happen, listeners, and go out to the website and get signed up for that. So let's take a quick break. And like I said, when we come back, we're going to talk self-love versus self-care. Thank you. You are listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any portion of today's episode, you can catch it on GetRootedRadio.com. That's GetRootedRadio.com. Don't forget to subscribe online to receive the latest news, events, specials, and words of encouragement. Go to GetRootedRadio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Dr. Donna Lindsay. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
I'm so glad to be here, Erica. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So during the last segment, we talked about self-love being a journey, and we're going to get more into that a little bit later. But this segment, we're going to focus on self-love versus self-care. And I think sometimes folks get those intertwined or confused, and there is a difference. So how do self-love and self-care differ?
So ultimately, when we're thinking about self-care, it's all of the things that, we like to do, whether male or female. It's, exercising. For some people, they just love exercising. Others, it's, about that bubble bath with a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or a hot tea. It's getting the nails done, the hair done, just beautifying the exterior. For some people, it's cleaning their home, others it's cleaning the car. This is how they demonstrate love toward themselves. But one of the things that I help individuals do is do that deeper dive, right? We want to go inside and take a look at what's happening internally, where our thought processes are, where our heart attitude is towards ourselves. And what we fail to realize is that when we have difficulty loving ourselves, I know that our society has, made love something that is like, it's just accessible. It's like everybody loves everybody. And really, is that really what it is? Because if I'm having difficulty loving myself, the question that I always pose is, how can I truly, effectively love you, right? Or love anyone? And so ultimately, we have to understand that sometimes what people say about us, you know, and they say, what was that about? And you're like, nothing. What do you mean? That's just who I am. There's an essence that's flowing from you. And so ultimately, Dr. Donna Lindsay, the self-love strategist, my goal is to work with you to get to the root of what that is. What is coming off of you, the essence of you? If people are saying that you're intimidating, if people are saying that, you know, they pick up anxieties, which is directly connected to fear, which is directly connected to some form of control, you know, what is it that you're afraid of? Are you afraid of failure? You know, are you afraid of not being enough? And so ultimately, that's the deeper dive of self-love. We go in and we really begin to unveil and uncover those things that you even tucked away from yourself. We go deep into the cracks and crevices of your heart, and we begin to unlock some of those doors that you've put a padlock on, to really discover what you've hidden away, what you've tucked away that could be directing your body language, your facial expressions, your conversations, you know, just your interactions with individuals. And so that's the deeper dive of self-love. What I would consider self-care is the exterior, and then self-love is going inside
Yeah.
and bringing
And
results.
I like that because, you know, I've always categorized it as it's self-care sometimes is the things you do to quote unquote care for yourself, right? Your doctor's appointments, you're working out, you're eating healthy, what you're reading, what you're watching, who you're spending time with. And then of course the little pampering things, right? The things that make you feel good.
Right.
And those are extremely important to do, right? You need to take out the time for yourself and because then you show your kids and your partner that they also need to do it.
Right.
But for loving yourself, it is so true. You need to love yourself before you can love anybody else. And you show others, when you love yourself, you show others how you want to be loved. And
Absolutely.
it's very reciprocal. And, you know, if you're not taking the time to take care of yourself, you're not taking the time to love yourself, or, you know, I don't have daughters, I have a son, but he's very into shopping and looks and everything. Yes, he's a big bad Marine, but he's also very much into that. But he, you know, if he would see me looking in the mirror going, ew, and why do you do that? So yeah, you had a kid. Oh yeah, you haven't been able to do this. Like it's that, why am I doing that? What makes me feel that no matter what I look like? And so that leads to that going down deep,
Right.
and finding that root cause, right? That why am I having those feelings of inadequacy or lack of self-confidence or lack of self-worth? And I think that gets down to the ultimate of loving yourself, how you are. And as you said, unapologetically, we're all perfectly imperfect. Yeah,
That's
I mean, we really are, because, you know, I might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm not trying to have everybody love me either.
Right.
And you know, sometimes you're not, because as you said, people don't love everybody, and that might be their issue, not yours. And if your sense of self-worth depends on that, and then how do you get to that?
Right.
But along those lines, how can someone show themselves love? How do we do that?
Oh, wow. And another great question. So when it comes to showing yourself love, of course, we do have those things. And I love what you said about, you know, doing those things on the exterior. By no means. I'm one, I eat well, I exercise, you know, I go for my regular manicures, pedicures, hair, you know, facial, you know, you name it. I do all of those things, those self-care things. And that is a way of demonstrating self-love, right? It makes me feel good. It makes me feel comforted when someone else is attending to my needs. But then in addition to that, the self-love piece would now cause us to do a deeper dive. So if I'm having a tough day at work, or if I'm having an interaction, you know, with a coworker or a supervisor, and I constantly find myself in this place where I'm triggered, that's the new word now, right?
Yes.
I'm triggered. I can't keep walking around saying, this person triggers me. This person triggers me, or that personality type triggers me. I mean, you could, but then you remain stuck. And then you don't give yourself the opportunity to navigate said relationships, to navigate what's going on within you. So I am still, like I said, I'm still a work in progress. We're all a work in progress. And, it's interesting, in my time of meditation just this week in preparation for the program, there were some things that were revealed to me in my quiet time about my triggers and the things that are still triggering me. And as I took a deeper dive, I realized that some of this is coming from my youth. Right? Experiences that I had with certain key adults in my life. And for me, it was women. And so now when I face women in leadership, capacities, my supervisors or my directors, they may not even say anything. It may just be a good morning, but for whatever reason, that good morning triggers me. And so I had to get, it was just something about it, And so I had to, being fully transparent, I had to really do a deeper dive. And to me, this is the work of self-love. Where is this coming from? And so as I dug deep, I realized that it was a submission issue. Okay, where is the submission issue coming from? Control. And control is rooted in fear. Let's do a deeper dive, Donna. What's going on? And it's the fear of failure, the fear of being led astray. And so ultimately, just using myself as that example. So we want to make sure that, we're taking the time and the opportunity to really do that deeper dive instead of walking around with the Band-Aid for 100 years for the rest of your life saying, I'm just triggered, and not discounting anyone that's triggered. Let's find out what's causing the trigger. It's almost like going to the doctor. And I like to, make connections between relationships, marital relationships, as well as health concerns, because those are the things that kind of trigger people. But, if you're going to the doctor and the doctor says, here's the diagnosis, and you're like, okay, and you leave, you walk away, you're triggered. What are you going to do about it? If you're having a health concern, of course, you're going to want the medication. That's what self-love is all about. Self-love is about taking that daily dose. Sometimes for some of us, like myself, it's multiple times a day dose of doing that deeper dive and really finding out what's going on. Why are these triggers continuing to occur? And how are we going to overcome this?
Yeah. And I like that analogy because it's true. It's yes, that triggers me. I don't want to say whose fault is that, but whose responsibility is it? If that's my trigger, why is it a trigger? Because I'm sure this is not the only person in this world who does something like that.
Right.
Let's find out why. And sometimes that's where we all have our moments of pushing it off, not wanting to take responsibility. And it's those same things where, yeah, you can be mad, you can be upset, you can be angry, same as you can be happy and joyful, but it's your responsibility to get yourself there. You can't rely on that from anybody else. So if you're thinking this person makes me mad because I get triggered, or I hear this person's voice and it's like nails on the chalkboard, why? Don't you want to understand why? And I think that is our responsibility to look and take that journey within, which is a scary place to go. We all know it, and it changes. And that is something that I think we'll get into, because we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss more about the self-love journey, right? It's not just a destination, it is a journey. But I think that is where we do get stuck. And you're right, we can't just stay there.
No, we can't.
So before we go on this next journey, right, before we go on our break, tell listeners about your freebies that you have.
Oh, I have freebies for the audience. For those that reach out, I have a copy of Self-Love, A Journey, Not a Destination. And I wrote the book, but it's absolutely one of my favorites simply because it's a book and a workbook. So before you can even move on to chapter 2, we're working on some things in chapter 1. We're doing that digging up, unveiling, excavation. And then I have Leading in Love, which is a book that I wrote for leaders who sometimes bring some of their baggage and bring some of their triggers to the work site. And how can I navigate, my audience, which are those that are subordinates to me, in love, and not necessarily project what I'm going through onto them. So those are the 2 freebies that I have. And I will gladly give that to the first individuals that email me at donna@donnalindsay.com.
Wonderful. And people can check out your website. And what's your website?
Website is my namesake, Donna DonnaLindsay.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Don't forget to visit getrootedradio.com to listen to a replay of this episode, sign up for helpful tips, and learn about upcoming events. That's getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Dr. Donna Lindsay. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited about this next section of conversation.
Me too. So during the last two segments, we've discussed the journey of self-love and the difference between self-love and self-care. But now let's get into a little bit more on how this really is a journey. And I know we've got your book here, A Journey, Not a Destination. So I mean, it's great, folks. You got to get it. You got to read it. And if you first people to email two people, if you missed the last, before the last break, first two people to email Dr. Donna Lindsay gets a copy of Self-Love, A Journey, Not a Destination. And then the other will get the book, the Leading in Love. And it was, for some reason, I almost forgot the name of your book. No. Oh, that would have been horrible.
No, that's fine. It's all about love. Everything is about
It is
love.
all about love. Yeah. So in your book, Self-Love, A Journey, Not a Destination, you address the self in self-love and how to effectively identify who you are. So how would an individual's failure to identify themselves hinder loving themselves, especially unconditionally?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of things that come to mind, and this thought actually came to mind as you were speaking in our last segment. This process, I want people to understand that this is all a part of your character development, right? So, a lot of people come to me and say, but Don, I'm a good person, and I say, what does that mean? Please define that. We all think that we're good people, but there are certain things about us that need to be dug up, that need to be excavated because they really serve no purpose. But because of, traumatic experiences and just, our interactions with life, we've acquired some coping mechanisms. We've acquired certain attitudes. We've acquired some certain mental positions. So one of the things that I definitely want to share with the audience is that this is all a part of your character development. And that is something that we should strive to work on all the days of our lives, right? This is essentially how we present ourselves to the world at large. The next piece that comes to mind is when we're talking about self, that we have to understand that we're a work in progress, right? So yes, we are good people. Yes, we do make sound decisions. There are good things that we do, but there are also things about us that are not so good. For example, am I selfish? Am I mean? Can I be rude? Can I be disrespectful? We have often connected that, well, I'm just assertive or I'm just straightforward. No, you're disrespectful. And let's get to the root of where that's coming from. And oftentimes, when I do that deeper dive with those individuals, what we find out is that, maybe in their childhood or maybe during their teenage years, there was some bullying going on, or parents that were constantly speaking down to them and, speaking, death over them, or speaking, making comments that just weren't edifying. And so now they come out with this assertion, but it's like assertion on steroids, and nobody's going to ever talk to me like that again, or no one's going to ever treat me that way again. And it manifests itself differently. So when we're talking about the self, it's very, very important that we take every opportunity possible. And it's in the book. You got to get the book. Email me to get a copy of the book for free. Is acknowledge. We have to acknowledge who we are. What are our strengths, which we oftentimes like to, we draw to that. We want everyone to know what's good about us, but we don't necessarily want to show the world at large what's not so good about us, because we deem it as a weakness. We deem it as, this is not the side of me that I want people to know. But it's important that when people are receiving you, that they're receiving the totality of you. So I'll use myself again as an example. One of the things that my mom always used to say, especially when I was like 16 years old, it's like, you have an attitude problem. And I used to say to her, I know. And she's like, oh, you're so rude, and I'm like, but I know. And so we have to spend time in self-reflection to really begin. Now, do I still have an attitude problem? I don't. It's slowly, it's almost gone, almost completely gone, but there's still a measure. You push the wrong button, it's going to be there. But what we have to understand is that, I'm going to love me, the positive sides of me, and I'm going to love the sides of me that are yet and still under construction. And that's essentially what I share with people. Listen, I apologize if my attitude offended you. I am working on it. Know that I'm diligently working on it. But to ignore it, and then people say to you, why are you looking at me like that? Or why did you speak to me that way? And now you're denying it. That sends you into a whole nother tailspin, right? And then we're just covering up again. We're sweeping things under the rug instead of addressing it. So my thing is, if I am presenting with that other side of me that's not so good, thank you for pointing that out. I really appreciate you pointing that out. I will definitely continue to work on that side of me. People oftentimes at work, at church, at home, they're like, did she just say that? Right? Yes, I did. Because I understand that I am a work in progress. So that's ultimately what I want the viewers to leave with, is that we all have things that we do well. We have strengths. We have things that have opened doors for us. But then there are those things that have closed doors. Those character traits that we have that have closed doors, that have severed relationships, that have caused people to turn away. And no longer can we just turn a blind eye to that. It's really time to dig deep into self and bring some correction, bring some resolve, put some strategies in place to help us overcome and be the best self that we can be.
And I think that's so important. And this isn't just personally, folks. This is also professionally, because our lives are intertwined, right? And I think of it I don't know how many times I've heard somebody say, well, that's just insert name here. He doesn't mean it. That's just how he is. And it's like, but has anybody ever addressed that with him?
Right.
Now, may not be my place to do that, but I've had a coworker who was a really good friend, and I have said things to him like, do you know why you're not getting a response? Because you're not asking, you're telling. And
Right.
You're not even telling from this is why. Right? It's one thing to ask and say, this is why we should do this way, and my reasonings behind it. You're demanding it, and everybody's shutting down around you because you catch more flies with honey, right?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to say don't be a genuine person, but at the same time, you do need to. I mean, I catch myself sometimes when people aren't listening to me. They're not listening to me. They may not be getting what I'm saying.
Right.
And that's when I have to slow down. I literally had somebody last night said, wow, I knew you were getting mad because I was getting mad, but you did not lead on with it. You stopped, you took a deep breath.
Right.
And then you went over it slowly and said, perhaps I'm not explaining myself the way I'm intending to. Let me try it a different way. And you slowed down and you said stuff, and it worked. I was like, and he goes, but I'll be honest. I totally was like, oh, she's I'm disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed tone. And
Yeah. That is growth.
but it worked. Right?
Yes.
And it is because, and I had a look to see, why do I get upset when people don't understand me? And it's what I said to begin with, because I think they're not listening.
That's it.
And it's not that they're not listening. I'm not articulate. I'm not really communicating my message the way I wanted to. So why is that? And then let's try to reframe. Let's try to change it. And that's how you need to go down. You need to identify that portion. Yeah. But when we're going through this journey, how does somebody, I don't want to say map it out, but how does somebody really chronicle the moments that are embedded in the journey of loving themselves? And why is that important?
Oh, journaling. I'm a huge fan of journaling. I mean, some people have fancy journals. Listen, you can go to the Dollar Tree where I am, go to the dollar store and get a notebook and just really start writing down your daily experiences, and as you write them down, you may revisit it that day. You may revisit it days later, but really go back and take a look at what you've written. Look at it from the lens of not necessarily what you went through. Look at it from almost like you're having an out of body experience. Look at what that person is going through. And where is that frustration coming from? Where is that irritation coming from? Ultimately, for me, it's all about getting to the root. It's all about getting to the root. When you're building a new house, you cannot build that new house on a stony foundation on top of tree stumps. You have to clear the land. You have to excavate before you can lay the foundation. And I think that journaling is such a personal, private, intimate experience that you can have with yourself, where you're documenting your thoughts of the day, the emotions that you experience, the things that you said, the things that people said to you. And I think it gives you the opportunity to later go back and reflect after you've come down, to go back and reflect on what was really happening. So that's something that I highly recommend to many of the people that I work with. And this is just not women, it's men, it's children, that I'm walking through, youth that I'm walking through this process. And journaling has really proven to be the go-to, where you're actually writing down what you went through and then going back and revisiting it and really taking the time to discover what was being triggered, what was happening there. You gave a beautiful example. It's not that people aren't listening. Could it be that I'm not articulating,
Yeah.
you know, and
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 it,
and that's it.
yeah, and it's hard at first, and when you start journaling, right? You don't have to be a novelist, right?
No.
It just write down. And sometimes I mean, even if I feel like I'm not in the mood to journal, or I feel like I don't have time, which you make time to do things, but if I didn't, I will even just put sad face, happy face, and a couple words. And
Mhm.
then maybe the next day I have more time, I'll go back and fill that in.
Right.
But that way I can say, this is what I felt at this time. So you weren't trying to remember, right, what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's great. One
Yeah.
last question before we go to break. Does the
Uh-huh.
journey of loving yourself ever come to an end?
No, absolutely not. I am the author of the book and I'm still going through my process. I shared earlier in the broadcast that I was, having some quiet time just this week. And, I'm studying patterns of behavior in myself, and I noticed that there was, a certain response that was projecting from me with a particular type of person, and I had to do the deep dive. So this is not something that ends. It's all a part of our character development. It's all a part of taking us to that next level as human beings, right? So that we can not only learn how to love ourselves unconditionally, but so that we can truly love others, those that we're married to, that we're overseeing as parents and, interacting with as coworkers. So no, it doesn't end. The journey doesn't end.
And I think it never ends, because we always want to improve, but also we change, right? We change as we grow older. I always laugh when people say, well, to somebody in a relationship, well, if you've changed, I'm like, I sure hope so. Honestly, I hope I'm not that same person that you knew at 14 years old or 20 years old. I
Right.
hope I'm growing. I hope I'm learning. And so I feel like self-love, because you change, you need to learn how to re-love yourself as you grow older, as you grow wiser, as you
Mm-hmm.
grow smarter.
Right.
Um, so again, it's not definitely not a destination. It is a journey. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss some key takeaways to love yourself each and every day. This is Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any of the information during the last segments, go to getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com to listen to the replay. Don't forget to subscribe, sign up for tips and special events, and pricing for upcoming coaching sessions at getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Dr. Donna Lindsay. Thank you for being on the show today.
It's been fabulous. The conversation has been so rich. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you. Now tell listeners how they can learn about you, your books, and your upcoming masterclass.
Awesome. So my books are sold directly on my website, and that website is donnalindsay.com. I have a virtual 3-week masterclass coming up in March. It's entitled the Love Me First Masterclass. It is my #1 bestseller. I've been doing it for several years now, and globally. So it's really been a great run. And the dates for the upcoming masterclass: March 2nd, March 9th, and March 16th, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., and that's Eastern Standard Time. And in that class, we'll dive deep. We'll look at, things that are hindering our positive thinking and release some toxic stuff and learn how to love ourselves unconditionally and unapologetically.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, during today's episode, we talked about all things self-love.
Yes.
And so if you could give 3 things that you think the audience really needs to know, take away from this conversation on self-love, what would they be?
So it's, I like one words. Sometimes people just say, give me one word to describe this or one word to describe that. So I have 3 words that I use. And they all start with the letter D, just like Donna. So the first one is decision. We got to make a decision. When it comes to self-love, it's all about making a decision. You said it earlier, to become the best self that we can be. It's all about that character development. It's all about, us making the decision to bring about change and transformation where change and transformation is needed. So that's the first thing that we want to do. When it comes to self-love, we want to make the decision. We're tired of living this way. We're tired of being angry. You said it. Being happy and joyful and peaceful is a choice. And so is being angry and, miserable. It's a choice. And so let's make the decision to embark upon this journey of self-love, and really begin to grow and to mature and to blossom and to bloom and really become all that we have been created and designed to be. The next thing that I want to say.
So real quick though about that.
Yeah.
I think that is so important because
Yes.
that is where people freeze, right? I have to make a decision. So remember, if you're not making a decision, that is a decision. So you're
Right.
choosing to be
So
unhappy.
good.
You're choosing to not want to change the method or the path that you're going down. You're choosing to stay right there, not taking that detour to go where you need to go. So that first is the most incredible thing to do. And it's sometimes the hardest because that makes us freeze. Like, just do it. So
Yeah.
make that decision.
And you know what's so interesting about what you're saying? As you're talking the entire broadcast, I'm visualizing your words, right? I have this whole movie that plays in my head, but I'm thinking about it. Can you imagine if you got to, a roadblock? Are you just going to sit there until nightfall, until tomorrow, until the next day, until the next day? What we fail to understand is, as humans, as adults, that we're making decisions all the time. Why not make decisions that are going to enhance your life and improve your life and maintain that joy and maintain that peace, or take your happiness to another level? We wouldn't do this with exterior things. We wouldn't, oh, the mall is closed, I'm just going to sit out here and wait until tomorrow at 10 a.m. when the mall reopens. No, you're going to reroute, you're going to go back home, and you're going to come back tomorrow. So let's, I understand that word sometimes, causes people to like, decision. I don't want to do that. But really and truly, we're making decisions all the time. Why not make decisions that directly impact us and bring about growth and bring about maturity and bring about ultimate peace and love and happiness?
Yes. So
Yeah.
sorry, I had to
No,
throw
it was
that in
good.
there.
I had to take it with you. And so the next one is determination, right? Because when you are on a journey, and the book is written along those lines. I was, born in Jamaica. I was raised in Canada, and we used to take road trips all the time from Canada to New York, Canada to Florida. And my dad didn't want to fly. We had to drive. And so I've seen a lot of the East Coast. We've had our fair share of roadblocks and, snowstorms and just things happening as we're taking these journeys. And it's so ironic that, fast forward now, this has all become a part of the book. But ultimately, it required determination on my dad's part to press his way. That's a 24-hour drive. He had to press his way, and keep driving. He could have threw up his hands and gave up and said, forget it. We're going back. We're going back to Toronto, where I know everything is going to be comfortable. So one of the things that I'm going to say, as you begin to embark upon this self-love journey, it's going to require determination. You are going to face roadblocks. You are going to face potholes. You're going to face construction. And you have to be determined to revisit some things and to deal with some things and get to the root cause of some things and still press your way through. This is such an intricate part of the self-love process. It is easy to give up. It's easy to throw your hands up and say, I don't want to deal with this. I can't deal with this. This is too much. It's too heavy. It's too thick. But then where does that put you? You're at a standstill. You've become stagnated. And I'm a firm believer, stagnation ultimately leads to, unfortunately, death, right? In that there's no growth. We're not seeing a blossoming and a blooming of who we could really become. We're not tapping into the fullest potential. We're almost essentially putting ourselves in a predicament where we're in a slow decline or a slow demise. And that's not where we want to be. Life is to be lived. Life is to be enjoyed. And it's to be enjoyed through the lens of love.
I've got nothing on that right there. That was
Yeah.
So we've got to make that decision. We've got to have that determination.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And then the last one is dedication, right? We dedicate ourselves. I know me as a mom and me as a grandma, a wife, a friend, a sister, a daughter, we dedicate and we commit so much to so many other people. We surrender ourselves, we sacrifice our time, we sacrifice, so much to be there for other people. It's time for us to be there for ourselves. And oftentimes what I say is, when I'm in groups or I'm working with people individually, we have to understand that self-love is not selfish. It's not we're not being selfish when we pull away and we take time to work on self. We're always pouring out, we're always speaking life over everyone else. We have to begin to speak life over ourselves. We have to begin to pour into ourselves and invest time in ourselves. You said it earlier, and it's often something that I say, so I firmly agree. When we are loving ourselves, when we're showing this commitment and dedication to ourselves, what we're doing is sending a message to those that we interact with on a regular basis in whatever community that is, that this is how I treat myself. So there's an expectation that you're going to treat me the same or better, right? And so, it does require that dedication. It requires you to be dedicated to yourself first, to commit to yourself that this is something that I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it for me, because ultimately it's going to enhance my life. It's going to make me a better me so that I can be better for you.
Yes. So make that decision.
Yep.
Make the decision to love yourself. Be determined and have that determination to love yourself, and be dedicated to loving yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Donna Lindsay, for being on the show today. I appreciate your time, and I want to thank you all for tuning in to Get Rooted Radio. If you missed any part of today's episode or you want to listen again, go to getrootedradio.com for the podcast, and don't forget to tune in the first and third Monday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, and 2 p.m. Pacific right here on Transformation Talk Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing day of loving yourself each and every day, and I look forward to the next time on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Visit GetRootedRadio.com if you've missed any part of this hit show, and tune in on TransformationTalkRadio.com to live fearlessly in your more and powerfully rooted in your unlimited yes. For more information and to work with Erica directly, visit GetRootedRadio.com. That's GetRootedRadio.com, and get ready to live it up, love it up, and let it go.